Welcome. It's wonderful to have everybody with us. We have a packed house. This is the Career Counseling and Future Workshop series of webinars brought to you by the New Indian Express, edX Live, and Sri Ramachandra Engineering and Technology, part of SRI HER. We're extremely thrilled that we're reaching out to young people in so many different ways, virtually, because we're all stuck at home. The world is a very different place. Today, we're going to be talking about something very intrinsic. It's a question that a lot of young people have constantly. What do I study next so that I will have a job at the end of these 4 years? Now, nobody here is a soothsayer, nobody here is pretending to know what the future is going to be like, because if 2019, 20 and 21 have taught us anything, you really can't predict the future. But what we can do is read the signs. We know what the technology is going to be like in that day and age, and we hope we can give you great life and career advice that will hold you in good stead. And on that note, let me introduce the panel today. We have Mr. Madhu Kandasamy from Qualcomm India. We also have with us Mr. P.B. Kotur from Wipro. Thank you for joining us, sir. We have Professor Dr. Sendil from Nanda Institutions. He's talking to us from Erode. Welcome, Professor Sendil. And I'm also thrilled to welcome Professor V. Raju, who's the Provost of Engineering and Technology from Sri Ramachandra. He's with us talking to us from Chennai. And he will be our first speaker. He's going to lay the context for what he believes will be the go-to jobs that you guys need to aspire for in the year 2025 and beyond. And without further ado, I now welcome Professor Raju. If you could give us your initial comments, sir.
On behalf of Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research in Chennai, I would like to welcome all of you to the program. I have a distinguished panel over here with us, Professor Senthil, Mr. Kotur, and Mr. Madhu Kandasamy. They're all very well known in the industry, and we are very happy that they could join us. And thanks to Indian Express for making this possible as a joint effort. I would like to just make a quick presentation on some of the areas of technologies that will have high placement potential in the next 5 years. I have taken this information from various sources, but things like artificial intelligence, data analytics, medical engineering, blockchain, and we have listed all of the potential things from various sources, including the interdisciplinary engineering related areas, transportation, energy, and other things. If you look at the companies around the world, many of these companies, we're looking at just hundreds of companies all over the world, thousands of companies. They have started utilizing some of these technologies. For instance, on the top, more than 85% of the companies are dealing with the data analysis, machine learning, things like autonomous vehicles usage, and so on. If you look at the companies that are with a lot of money as back as 2015, they've been making an impact on the technology and how the future is going to be. Some of the companies that you see on the screen, Apple, Microsoft, and so on, they've become so prominent, their revenue is much larger than many of the countries around the world. If you see in the next picture, you have some of the top 4 companies. They're above many of the top 10 economies in the world, with 2.2 trillion for Apple, Microsoft, and so on. All of these companies are making a huge impact on the technologies of tomorrow. And according to the World Economic Forum, these are some of the areas where the jobs are going to be more than 100 million are projected. And I have already given you the list of things, but here is again the same view of that. But if you look at India, where do we stand in the growth of the emerging technologies? We happen to be number 1 according to some of the sources that have put the information. So the countries like China come behind in the use and the potential to grow with the emerging technologies. China and the rest of the world happen to be around 10, 11%. We are projected to grow at a rate of about 16%. And the artificial intelligence market in India is considered to be massive opportunity according to Economic Times and NASSCOM and others. And you see in billions of dollars by 2025. It started very small a few years back, but it is growing very well. Here is another view, about 30% or so annual growth in the social media application of AI. The health-related areas globally, it's growing every 3 years or so at the same rate, 100%, 200%, 300, and so on. By 2022, it's at least 4 times what it used to be a couple of years back. And there is another area in terms of medical technologies, telemedicine, using all kinds of sensors and diagnostic tools and predictive analytics and so on. It's between now and the next 10 to 15 years, although the projection goes all the way up to 2040. The driver in India is the information technology industry. If you see the growth, about $200 billion or so currently, and that keeps growing at about very constant rate and driving the future. And here are various sectors of the IT industry. And looking at the skills, what is going to be needed? About 2002 or so, about 10% or so was the evolution in skills in the areas of technology, but it has grown about twice the amount of skills requirements currently, and that is expected to grow more so. And there are other things like social and emotional skills, cognitive skills, ability of the people to learn. These are all the important things to deal with the future of technologies. And the transformation of tomorrow's jobs, if you look at on the left side, a larger number of them, if you take engineering alone, they are expected to be broken into product development, data-related information, engineering aspects of it, cloud computing, and so on. So there is going to be a merger coming together of number of these areas that are currently, but opening up all kinds of possibilities. In terms of the jobs and salaries, I have listed not necessarily the largest companies, but here are some of those things like SurveyMonkey paying about 300,000 plus on the average salaries for the high-tech employees. Facebook, Twitter, and so on, more than 300,000 on an annual basis, an average for the employees of the company. Here are some of the others, Microsoft and Salesforce, Facebook, LinkedIn, and others, of the order of 150,000 plus on an annual basis, the average salaries for the high-tech employees, and the number of jobs in these companies are also listed over there for you to look at. In India, the startups are going to be an important factor, and they've been growing very well, and it is expected to continue. So how do we really prepare? What are some of the degree programs that will prepare students for these kinds of jobs? We took from the USA some of these engineering and science related areas. And if you look at specific skills, for instance, the machine learning framework, what are some of the tools and technologies that the companies are currently looking for? And so we have listed a few for you to have an idea what an IT professional dealing with high-tech industry will have to learn. I would like to just close by giving a brief overview of some of the things that we do. At Sri Ramachandra, we built the programs around what is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And almost all the BTech programs are computer science and engineering with areas like artificial intelligence and machine learning, data analytics, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, medical engineering, and so on. We also offer BSc and MSc programs along with the PhD as well. One unique aspect of Sri Ramachandra's programs are we offer internship, the opportunity to work in industry from the first year onwards. So every year for about 3 to 4 months, students get to work in industry. By the time they graduate, they would have about 15 months of work experience with a BTech degree. This is the kind of thing we think would prepare our future students for high-tech related challenges that the industry is facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Professor Raju. I think, I wanted to tell you this last time itself. I wish that when I was in college, we had professors like you who would give us these really colorful charts to look at, because, we were stuck in the OHP era and somehow it really took all the color out of learning. But we had a fantastic time nonetheless. But this is such a great overview of where courses are heading and where technologies are heading in the future. And there's a really big lesson in there. All of it seems to be geared towards tech, tech, tech. One of the largest questions that everybody seems to have is, we keep talking about AI, we keep talking about ML, we keep talking about big data, we keep talking about crypto. All of these words are swirling around any conversation that we have today. But at the end of it all, does it come down to a BTech in computer science or in IT? Well, let's ask somebody from the industry. And may I now invite Mr. Madhu to talk to us. Mr. Madhu, of course, is from Qualcomm, and he's a seasoned engineer, and he's somebody who does this day in and day out, and he brings a lot of experience to the table. So may I now invite Mr. Madhusudan to talk to us, please?
Thanks, Daniel. That is a pretty good question. So, I think maybe before get to answer that question, at least I try to kind of give a little bit more background on what is this AI and how does it going to impact the industry, so that people have a better understanding of it. And then I will come to this, your question. So I think AI is kind of the buzzword like everybody is keep talking about. And even on the majority of the people kind of think AI in the form of an applied AI. Like you take any problem, okay? They will just simply think it can be solved by AI, and they will use some model to train it and get their work done. But that is not the case. There is multiple levels of AI work available or AI jobs available in the industry. So the first set of jobs in the AI industry is all called fundamental AI research. So these kind of jobs, or the work here, involves coming up with new models or a completely breakthrough technology in the industry, which enables everybody to solve their basic problem. Like when the CNN network was first found in this computer vision side, that kind of increased the explosion in the computer vision based market. And then let's say if the BERT or the open GPT kind of model, that increases the adoption on the NLP based use cases. So these kind of jobs need a very strong mathematical skill. So for which the foundational education should start even from your 12th or the 10th mathematics itself. So you need to have that strong mathematical skill all the way around to really understand the problem. How do you kind of transform this machine learning problem into a mathematical problem using calculus and linear algebra? So that needs an proper mathematical based skill. And the next level of jobs is the applied AI skills. I think people kind of typically talk about data science. So that comes under this applied AI. So what these kind of jobs entail is they will take the basic research done by this foundational AI guys, take let's say Inception V3 model or a BERT model, and they try to create a new application. Let's say there is a chat bot. Okay, you try to kind of chat with a website, an automatic bot answers you, right? And then when you try to make a phone call to somebody, it's a computer answers to you. So these are all kind of applied AI jobs. You take someone's work, and then it's called transfer learning. You kind of enhance on top of it, customize for your job. So for which you need to kind of, there won't be too much of a mathematical background is not needed, but you need all those basics of AI. So a course from fundamental computer science is definitely needed for this, and on top of it you need to have a specialized courses. I think some colleges are offering data science degrees, and some colleges at least have 2 or 3 specialized subjects on data science and AI. So these kind of things will help you to enable them to get into those kind of jobs. And the next level of jobs, I would say it's called framework or platform AI jobs. So like Mr. Raju kind of touched upon those frameworks like TensorFlow, Caffe, Theano, so those kind of framework. So for which you need to develop those frameworks so that this data science case can develop those things. So you need a regular software engineering skill. So you may not need a proper AI skill for those jobs. A typical computer science degree will be sufficient for that platform AI jobs. And then the next level of jobs is called system AI jobs. So the people who is working on this level of AI, they will write software which is kind of really optimized for the hardware it is running on. Like if most of the training runs on NVIDIA's GPU hardware, so that they need to develop a CUDA-based libraries for it, or even an optimized library for other chipsets. So for these people, they need to really understand this computer architecture subject in their engineering. So they really need to know how your CPU ALU work, how the cache line works, how the paging, what is the operations, all those things we needed. So we need a different, there are different categories of AI jobs. For each category job, there is a different skills there. And coming back to your basic question, is your engineering degree is important? Very much. And because our engineering degrees is kind of, it's kind of a bit of a buffet, I would say. It covers kind of a wide variety of things in the computer science department, because computer architecture typically they keep it in the second year, or in the starting of the third year. That is very important for the system AI jobs, and software engineering being taught in the school, and DSA and algorithms needed for this foundational AI, and then specialized AI courses needed for the data science and the applied AI kind of jobs. It's kind of a bit long answer. I think you might have got the gist of it.
No, definitely. I think that's it's also very important to understand that the kind of practical exposure that students are now getting in
College was unlike anything that we've seen over the last few decades. From your viewpoint in the industry, how are you seeing that development? That the students who are coming through these courses and coming into industry as interns, how do you see the level of their knowledge as, say, compared to 10 years ago?
Okay, compared to 10 years, okay, that's a good question. So it's definitely improved, because 10 years ago, at least there is a large gap between what is the industry need and what is the skill needed from the industry and what the colleges are giving. And nowadays, I see even for this example, so these colleges nowadays reaching out to these industry experts and kind of asking their inputs and identify how to bridge those gaps. So that I see a welcome change across many of the institutions. So it is improving, but is it good? No, I think it needs to improve a lot. I think each colleges need to kind of really have some mentors from the respective industry leaders and rework on this curriculum. I think, and then I'm also kind of thinking it will be really good to have a specialized courses, because the earlier point I said our computer science is kind of a buffet, but it becomes a lot of things, but you are expert of nothing. So maybe a specialized specialized courses, or I think nowadays MTech, I see there are AI specialized MTech courses are being running. So those kind of courses we need to see a lot, so that we can bridge the gap, improve compared to 10 years, but still there is a lot of ways to improve.
Could I now invite Mr. PB Kotur, who's from Wipro. He heads global talent management there. And I know there's a lot of great insights in terms of the kind of people that he sees coming into industry from colleges. To maybe give us a few insights on why he believes certain jobs may be more sought after than others, and what kind of skill sets you guys need to have to get those jobs. Mr. Kotur, if we can hear from you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. First and foremost, thanks to all of you, the eminent panelists, respected Dr. Raju, respected Dr. Senthil, our industry colleague, Mr. Madhu and Daniel, and all the members who are present from across the country. Good evening to all of you. It's a very interesting topic, Jobs 2025, navigating emerging technologies. Your question, Daniel, is specific to industries when freshers move from campus to corporate. Now, what are the typical roles they play? Now, traditionally, over the last 20-25 years in IT-enabled services, if you look at, most of them aspire to be a software engineer. I think you all know. Every household dream to have at least one child to be a software engineer in this country. In 2020, I think your question to Madhu was about 10 years before, 20 years before. You know, I went to a campus for the recruitment in 2000. People were asking whether IT industry will be there in the next 10 years, right? My simple question, because that's how India was, and is totally a new dimension to the job opportunities. I answered to the professor there. Semiconductor started in 1948. Software industry started in 1980. IT industry took a shape in 1996. And today we are 2000. You will continue to rule the world in every sphere of life for many centuries to come. That was the answer. The next question the professor asked me, he did not leave me because I taught in that college before joining the corporate. He asked me the question, how many people do you think you are going to create a job in this country? So maybe during that time, we may not have more than 20, 25 software engineers in the country. And predominantly, Bangalore and Tamil Nadu, Chennai were more prominent in that time. I told we will have 1 million. He laughed. So if the professor is on the call, definitely today we have 4.5 million software engineers working in more than 2,800 industries in India alone. NASSCOM says this. This is a very, very important perspective when I say what happens in 2025 or 2030. Right? This is one perspective, Mr. Daniel. Second, when we started hiring people in 2000 and anybody getting 100 people, it's a wow, right? Oh, this time 100 freshers are joining from the campus. All the seniors used to celebrate. Today, in one shot, most of the Twitch companies, TWITCH, the TCS, Wipro, Infosys, we call that 6 top companies as a Twitch companies. In one single day, they may be onboarding 2,000, 3,000 people. It's not a new number, right? All these Twitch companies alone together in today's world, they recruit from the campuses at least 1.2 lakh students. While India produces roughly about 800,000 engineers, only these 6 companies get 1.2 lakhs. Then think of over 2,800. So my message to all the youngsters joining here, their parents, the future is brighter and future is now. So this is the second point I want to make. Third point, when I looked at 10 years back or 20 years back, every graduate wanted to be in electronics and communication, wanted to be in mechanical, wanted to be in civil, but yet to be in IT industry. That was the inspiration. Today, Dr. Raju definitely will see that every college, all the 3,565 AICTE approved colleges and deemed to be universities, that everybody is skewed to computer science and engineering. Why computer science engineering? It brings a lot of specialization. Dr. Raju has mentioned all the specialization, right? So only it shows how we are growing. Even in the pandemic, while the entire world seems to be not doing anything, but because of IT-enabled services, IT engineers, every aspect of life is running lively 24/7, 365 days. Look at the opportunity that IT space has created. Coming to the emerging technologies, right? So Madhu rightly mentioned it about, whichever the religion people belong, they have their mantra, the specific, recital. If you are a software engineer, you are aspired to be in IT industry. Every single morning, if you are not able to say AI, somewhere you are missing. AI has become a new mantra. AI is a new electricity. AI is new oxygen. So this is where we see. Dr. Raju has clearly mentioned 97 million jobs are going to be created in the world by 2025. World Economic Forum predicted there is 133 million jobs are created. In spite of that, there are 75 million going to be evaded because of the automation, because of the same artificial intelligence and machine learning. But in effect, still we continue to have 58 million jobs for every engineers. Look at the number of engineers we are producing. From 5,000 plus institutions in this country, over 900 universities in this country, we are getting effectively only 800,000 engineers. But look at that, 133 million across the globe. And what America produces 75,000 engineers, graduates every year, while India produces 800,000. You can safely take 1 million engineers. No country in the world is producing it. Why? Because your production is very clearly for every one role in artificial intelligence, we need at least 3 different specialized people. Maybe a software engineer, a hardware engineer, or a process engineer, or a quality engineer. I think that exactly Madhu was mentioning, what seemed to be a one single role called software engineer or a project engineer. Now in AI, it starts AI designer, AI developer, AI tester, AI lead, AI manager, AI architect, AI delivery head, right? Then you see that AI application developer and so on and so forth. One simple role called software engineer, because of one AI, it has spread into multiple job roles. What was not a reality today is a reality in every industry, which are predominantly. Similarly, you have cyber security. Cyber security is a vast, cloud is very vast, and without cloud, there is no IT. That is the world we are entering in. If there is a cloud, there is a business, right? And other point I would like to mention to all the audience here, over the last 20, 25 years, information technology was an enabler of the businesses. Interestingly, today, this moment, information technology has become a business itself. So therefore, when your NASSCOM says 191 billion US dollar is our revenue from all the 2,800 companies, look at the opportunities. And 50 billion is also expected to be coming from gig economy and startups. Dr. Raju mentioned about 10.4 billion comes from the startup funding. This is an opportunity in front of our young minds. So there is a lot to tell. I'll wait for my turn. So thank you so much for the initial question, Mr. Daniel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kotur. Before we very quickly go on to Dr. Senthil, I just wanted to say that, one of the things that that really struck me in what you said was, you said you have to wake up in the morning and say AI, AI, AI as a mantra. I hope people don't do it too much. People might think they're singing Old MacDonald Had a Farm, But it's important to also understand that one thing that I took away from what you said was, if you don't live, breathe, sleep, drink technology, you're probably going to be irrelevant in 2025. And I assume that's the message that you're giving our young engineers out there. Dr. Senthil, if I may now invite you to speak.
I'll just add to you, Daniel, when you say AI, I think you mentioned very nicely, A is adaptable and adapting. I is innovative. So while artificial intelligence can be a big phenomena in the industries, but at a soft level, within the heart, within the mind, within the soul, people should be always adapting to the new world and innovating every day, each day. So that's the point I wanted to make.
I think that's the lesson that evolution should have taught us and will probably still teach us. Thank you so much, Mr. Kotur. Dr. Senthil, if I could ask you to make your initial comments, and maybe also since you work so much with students and run an institution yourself, to talk a little bit about how relevant our entire teaching methodology is and how in touch with industry it is from an academic perspective as well. Dr. Senthil?
Sure, Daniel, I will cover that point. Good evening, Raju sir, Mr. Madhusudan, Mr. Kotur, and Mr. Daniel, and all the members present in the meeting. I thank Professor Raju for giving me this chance, also Indian Express and edX. I thought of presenting what will be the emerging areas in 2025 after the pandemic. So, and also like to focus on skills that is required. And Mr. Daniel has put forth a question that how this academic thing that we should take up and what to be done. I'll try to cover all the points in my presentation. So I just see this coronavirus, the smallest creature, has the greatest potentiality to set the next decade technology. While talking, I think Mr. Kotur, Dr. Raju, and Mr. Madhusudan was pointing out the importance of AI. Even I will have that as first in my list. So AI and the data science technologies helped us to predict and protect us from the COVID waves. These technologies also helped the scientists to simulate and get the vaccine in 2 days. They tried to simulate, and the biotech companies was able to just design the synthetic mRNA within 2 days. I think that is the potentiality of AI, and that's going to be the leading technology. And the students may ask the question. I think I'm sure that. So, what is the difference between computer science, IT, and ECE, or doing computer science with a specialization in AI? I will shortly answer to you. So, I can see the pandemic has really reminded us the need for AI in the public health intervention, as well as in the data and the artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence has many potentiality, and I don't want to list because already the speakers was talking about it. The next that I have in the list is robotics and the contactless technologies. So we can just see that during this pandemic time, the industry which was heavily relying on the human interactions, like if you see like the retail, food, manufacturing, and the logistics are the worst hit. I think these areas in this near future, it will be replaced by the robots. So there will be a lot of opportunities and in the robotics area. So the students should start preparing for that too. And I also see the contactless technologies, which I was talking about. So already everybody would have used the contactless payment. Similarly, there is a greater need for the autonomous vehicles and the drones and the robots for the future. So these areas the students should focus on, or for doing their projects or improving their skills, they should be focusing towards it. Why contactless technologies? We started seeing a person like a zombie when they are coughing or sneezing. So I think we will be trusting more on the robots than the humans shortly. And already airports are already transforming into a touchless digital space. So a lot of opportunity will be there. Everybody would have heard about IoT, and the other technology going to come is IoT. Okay, so IoT refers to whatever you try to connect to, whatever you try connecting to the internet. All the devices comes under the IoT devices, from your smartphones to Alexa and everything. And what is this IoT? It's going to be the internet. It's nothing but the internet of behavior. I think whatever the data that we have collected from these devices, I think we are going to track it and try to analyze it and try to use this data for a better society. So the jobs will be more in those areas too. So the next one that I have in the list is all remote sensor monitoring. So I think it's a part of IoT, but I want to mention here because this technology is going to be really very important, because travel slowdown already we have started seeing. I think the next 3 years, even after the pandemic ends, I'm sure that these technologies will rule. So, and everything is becoming online now. So kids are getting used to the online education. And if you really ask them, they will say they may miss their friends, but not the school. So even in the lockdown, a lot of entertainment was going on through the online channels, and many of them have registered. So that's going to be the next next wave that we are going to be focusing on. If you take a survey, it says that there were n number of new subscribers to the entertainment channel. So everything is going to turn online. As Professor Raju was telling, even the telemedicine is going to be the next greatest wave, and people are going to work on that. So, and another important technology that's going to rule us, the information security and the authentication. Nowadays, so whatever the information that we get it through our WhatsApp or whatever the medium. We don't know whether it is authentic or not. And we are, if more number of people in the internet, I'm sure that there will be more number of security threats that's going to come. And there is, again, a lot of scope will be there. So while Professor Raju was projecting, he was having a lot of areas where the BTech course was offered. It's better courses offered, like starting from artificial intelligence, IoT, followed by data science, security. I think all these courses are already there in Sri Ramchandra. And one question that will always be in the mind of the students of what I should take. So whether to go to electronics and communication, whether to go to computer science engineering, whether to take artificial intelligence. I want to tell to those students, so wherever or whatever the course that you take, okay, there is a chance for you to get specialized in that area, in whatever area you like to do. There is a chance or a provision given in your curriculum to do it. One skill that I expect that every student should develop is upskilling and the reskilling skill. Okay, so whatever you are, whatever you have learned, don't have an attitude, I have taken mechanical engineering. Why should I know about artificial intelligence? If that attitude is there, I think you're going to miss something. You should always have an attitude, whatever the course that you're going to take, but I will also specialize in the skill set that is very niche in the market. So that is one thing that I want to tell. And Mr. Daniel asked me the question like, what are the ways that the student can specialize themselves? As I was telling, whatever the course that you have taken, don't worry, which is, sir, one question even I saw in the chat box, sir, whether I can take electronics and communication engineering. Is it good? Sir, all the courses are good when you fully involve yourself and if you specialize, because the industry, Mr. Madhu was telling that the academic people should be more concentrating in giving up the industry-ready product directly or indirectly. I can get this information. There are provisions for the students to do, and there are a lot of provisions that they can take whatever the courses they want to do, and they can specialize in any courses. So whatever the courses that you get, you can take it, but ensure that you have open-mindedness to involve yourself and learn new things. So I just stop here, and I will look forward for the questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Senthil. It's also interesting that in all of the things that you listed out, in all of these careers and emerging areas that you listed out, we actually see how people's consumer patterns are emerging. You know, when you look at app development and you look at how apps have really taken over our lives in the last year, especially in terms of food delivery, in terms of something like Dunzo, in terms of healthcare, telemedicine, and all of these things. And then you look at the health sector and you see how much of innovation and technology jobs, especially after the pandemic, it's likely to create. And I think that's a huge focus area for students. And like you said, there are a lot of very interesting questions that have come. So I think what I'll do is I'll pull out these questions, and then I will I'll ask each one of you to sort of weigh in and give us your opinions. This first one is something that I particularly liked. This is from Akshat. Akshat has said, "Sir, this is a bit of an ironical question given the situation going on, but out of curiosity, I'm asking, are there careers for people who hate desk jobs which will boom in the future?" Now, in the age of work from home, Akshat, it's very difficult to talk about jobs that will boom that are not desk jobs. But considering Mr. Kotur is sort of somebody who deals with this day in and day out, I'm going to first ask him to try and respond to that. Mr. Kotur, do you think that there are any jobs which will boom that are not for people, you know, who like to sit on desk?
I think it's a very interesting question. You know, this is the world.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I mentioned the question, you know, when 98% of the population workforce is at home, right? You know, what we perceive, what we used to enjoy, what used to connect, converse, collaborate in the campuses, gossip, that era in the last 15 months is disappeared, right? May appear in a hybrid form, but today everybody is at home, right? When you are, I think Dr. Senthil was mentioning contactless, cashless payment. This is the world we are. Even it is a virtual interaction, virtual, you know, connection, virtual, everything is virtual, right? You know, work from home, learn from, you know, home, everything is there, right? But there are many, many opportunities. Those who don't want to get a job, right? So possibly I requested Dr. Raju, can I take the liberty of making jobs in 2025 rather than I do not belong to the world where jobs are important, right? I belong to the philosophy of careers, right? Careers in 2025, right? So then automatically when I translate the aspiring candidate who is asking the question, can I do jobs at home? Without doing degree also, can I do a job? Answers are both yes. I did mention about a gig economy that is coming up. Gig economy is not small in India alone, right? Gig economies assume that the person learns a foundational skill in AI, or foundational skill in data science, a foundational certification IoT, or foundational in cyber security. The person can choose to work for X company from 8 to 9 in the morning, say 5,000 rupees per hour. From 10 to 9 to 9:30 tea break for him. 9:30 to 10:30, he can pick other company. He can work for the same skill, 9:30 to 10:30, 5,000 rupees per hour in the second company. He can choose to be not working till 12 o'clock. So 2 o'clock, he can log into third company for the same skill, for the same 5,000 rupees per hour, 2 to 3. Assume that he doesn't want to do the same skill from 4 to 8. He wished to be a Swiggy agent, right? He can go for 1 hour riding the cities, delivering, every 30% of the benefit given to the service provider. Assume that he wants to do something, 4 to 6 or 8 in the night. He doesn't want to do, or she doesn't want to do anything between 5 and 7, only 4 to 5, then 7 to 9, Swiggy. Between 5 and 7, he can also teach 5,000 per batch, per month, per person. Look at the amount he or she is going to do being at the desk at home. Why I'm telling you, there is a product our organization has, is the world's most popular crowdsourcing platform called Topcoder. Topcoder is a crowdsourcing platform. The graduates, the skilled people, the talented people need not go to any company for that matter. There are 1.5 million registered best of the best programmers are the members there. The world's best of the best projects come and sit on Topcoder. Any member can take the problem, solve. If the solution is accepted, the reward goes with the complexity of the solution provided. If it's a very simple UI UX problem, if it is 2,000 rupees or $200 or something like that will be there. If the complex problem is solved, there will be a 5-digit dollar money. So that's the opportunity the youngsters are going to do it. I hope this answered partially at this point. And otherwise, my answer will continue to be a one session.
No, I think this is something that we can dissect, because a lot of the other questions also have shades of this. It's interesting that you talked about the gig economy, because say 10-15 years ago, if a student actually finished college and went and told his parents, I want to be a freelancer, they would probably get very upset and said, I wasted 4 years of fees on you. Today, people in the gig economy are very revered, and I think that's a fantastic thing. And just as a small addendum, guys, if you thought that it was very weird that Mr. Kotur said you can do 2 sessions of coding in the morning and be a Swiggy delivery guy in the evening, remember, in countries like the United States, most people drive an Uber and it's perfectly fine. They have day jobs where they're tech coders, they're app developers. In the evening, they drive an Uber just because they can and they want to. So there's nothing demeaning or wrong about any of these jobs.
No, Daniel, I can absolutely, you were said right. As a pre-pandemic, in the evening, 7:30, I was supposed to come back home on that day. That day I did not travel by my own transportation. I had to pick the Uber, right? It was 7:30 in front of my office. I got in. That shopper was looking in the window, in his mirror. Okay, I was curious why, and absolutely the car was so clean, neat, and all that. So he started. He alerted me. Meter is on. But I looked the entire, his discipline, the way he was speaking, communication style, absolutely is very, very professional. So by the time 100, 200 meters we drove, he looked back and asked, so that's a very fungibility and all that they come along. So that's where it's not a question was not weird, very interesting for me at least.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have the guts to go for that, this is the age of the gig economy. All right, the next question that we have is from Nitin Vignesh, and I'm going to ask Dr. Senthil and perhaps Professor Raju to sort of give us a perspective on this. How do you see the idea of a startup in the field of IoT mixed with cybersecurity? And he also asks, if I want to get this done, what should I do from the first year of college?
Mr. Daniel, first of all, we offer a degree program in BTech in Computer Science and Engineering with Cybersecurity and Internet of Things. So
that's right.
That's right. So there are plenty of opportunities for a person who has an interest and willing to experiment, look at the kinds of products that would be useful in a hospital. He can start building one. And in fact, one of our students, Professor Senthil and I have had this student, he came to the hospital, built a small IoT device. As a matter of fact, a team was formed around that. That robot happens to be delivering things between various divisions of the hospital. It's an IoT device. And of course, it has provisions, cybersecurity provisions, because it is delivering very sensitive material, documents and medicine and all those things. So absolutely, there are plenty of opportunities. I just said one, but Professor Senthil can say about many other things.
Yes, sir. So the question is like what I should do when I want to do a startup in IoT. What course that I need to take? Professor Raju sir has very clearly explained that there is a course on IoT at Sri Ramchandra Institute, so they can take it. Or any course that on computing science will help him to do. So what he needs to do in the 4 years. Okay, so if you have decided that you want to do a startup in a particular area, then focus on the tools and techniques that is much more related to the field. For example, if you want to do it in IoT, so sir, what I should do from the first year, you have a lot other subjects to also to do it, but your focus should be because you want to enter into IoT. So just focus on those courses, those electives that are for it. And there are a lot of students, especially in Srihar, if you see there in SRET, they have a well-structured program where you have every year you have an opportunity to do internship. So utilize those internship periods to build up to build a prototype. You cannot directly start to build up a product. So you will be starting to building up a prototype. So use those semesters to build up a prototype. Get in touch with a lot of people because they provide you a greatest opportunity where you can work with industry people, so you can do a lot. So what you need to focus is you should have that fire in you that you want to land up in that area, and you in your engineering curriculum you can, as Mr. Madhu was telling, it's like a buffet. So a lot of items will be there, but you can pick what you want to do. Okay, so you can pick a course which is very much interested to your field, and you can do it. One thing that I want to add here is you should develop your logical and analytical skills. Okay, so and your programming skills too. Now it is very, very important. So some people will say, sir, I've taken computer science, but I don't like coding. Okay, so this should not be the case, am I right? So also you should start liking in what you're doing. So first you have that, create that passion. Okay, start using the media, social media, to learn a lot about your field. And a lot of students in Srihar is working along with me and in the project. Yesterday there were a team of students who were analyzing about the COVID data using data analytic tools. So they have a lot of provisions and opportunities in their curriculum. So you can use that, and you can do a lot of things. And as I was telling, be focused and start picking up the course that will help, and plan your 4 years that what you want to do. Okay, and you can execute it, then you will, for sure you will.
Mr. Daniel, I think in addition to what Professor Senthil has said, I would like to say there are three things needed. Strong computer fundamentals, from programming all the way, various aspects of. And then there should be a good background in electronics, because if we're going to deal with IoT, part of that is that part. And then sensors and other things come with that. The last one is very critical. You have to have an area where you would like to apply, whether it is in healthcare industry or transportation or just simply home automation. It could be any kind of an application. You have to have an understanding. Then you can just innovate. I think the idea of just applying all these things to something unique, solving people's problems, organizations' problems. So these are the things that one should think about. Thank you.
I think that's fantastic. Just to very quickly ask Mr. Madhusudan as well if he has something to add to that.
Sure, I just want to add a couple of points. I think Dr. Senthil kind of clearly pointed out about this algorithmic and analytical skills. I think when we kind of try to recruit people from a majority of the colleges, we see many computer science students are not really strong in the data structures and algorithm. These people kind of get knocked down in the first round itself. And when I kind of talk to few people in the computer science, I think some of them kind of misled, saying that, okay, if you don't I mean, they are not properly educated about the real importance of this analytical and the programming skills in a computer science for a computer science student. I would like to reiterate to all the students who is listening that it's very, very fundamental, analytical and computer science skills. And your subjects, this computer architecture and the data structures and algorithm, I think that is there in every form of computer science course. So they are very, very important. Don't bother about how much mark are getting pass or anything. Understand the crux of it. Spend a lot of time on those subjects, because that is what going to be the roadmap for your next 15 to 20 years in your career. So don't take those courses lightly. Okay, that is about one generic point I want to make. And coming back to this specific questions on this IoT, I think that's a wonderful idea. I really see it's fantastic that students are now started thinking about the startup and coming with focused area in the beginning itself. That is really wonderful. So Professor Raja clearly pointed out the three areas to needed to get really excel or to be a successful, figure out a successful startup on this IoT. I just want to add just one more point. Post your education, there are companies who will do some AI startup challenges. For that matter, even Qualcomm does a AI India startup challenge every year, and so they have this AI startup challenge. So you can submit your AI ideas, and then if your idea kind of shortlisted, then these companies will provide two things. They will give you the seed funding, and they will also provide all kind of support needed to kind of either with the technical support you need, and they will kind of back you up, so you can go and easily talk to the venture capitalist to kind of fund your idea. So it will propel you. And then I think from government of India also, they are kind of trying to come up with this AI Center of Excellence on various cities in India. There also you can go and present your ideas and be part of that startup nurturing ecosystem. So then you can get the funding from the government as well. So there is a lot of avenues post your education if you have the right set of ideas to kind of really being successful.
So Nitin, the tech experts have given you their take. I'm going to very, very shortly tell you one thing that you need. You may have a great idea, it may be useful for a great many things, but if you can't communicate it well, whether it's to an investor, whether it's to the media, whether it's on social media, whether it's to the public, if you can't tell people why your startup is the next big thing, your startup is probably never going to get out of the garage. So please always remember, if you have a great startup idea, remember also build or have somebody with you who's got phenomenal communication skills, because if you can't get that message out there, your startup is not going to go anywhere. And do that from the bottom level up. Because at every stage, all these gentlemen will agree with me, documentation, pictures, proposals, presentations, if you don't clear any of these, it doesn't matter how great your coding is, you're never going to get funded. I'm sure everybody agrees with me on this.
Yeah, that's a great point, Daniel. I just had one more point. I think this startup ideas, this really ambitious stuff is good, but please always have a plan B in place. Like you need to have, let's say, the startup idea is not going good, you should be able to go and get traditional jobs to ensure you have the right skills and your degrees. So please give very important that. Don't be too obsessed with your single idea, and then yeah.
I think that's a phenomenal thing. Know when to give up. It's when something is not working out, know when to go to plan B. Yeah. All right. So the next question is, this is something that I think would Professor Senthil may be able to answer. Is Balaji asks us, a lot of these workshops boost student confidence and there's an eagerness to learn and have more applications in trends that are there today. But in terms of practical knowledge, can we achieve a lot virtually?
Yeah, like I'm sure that we can, because a lot of tools are there nowadays where especially for computing science to execute the codes. Okay, we have a lot of tools available online, and we do use those tools to impart the knowledge to the students. So for us, for example, if I want to take up a data science course, I'm teaching a data science course, I don't think so that I should be asking them to come or sit in the lab to do it, because nowadays a laptop or your mobile phone is much more enough for me to teach a tool like Tabula. So I can stay anywhere and I can start giving you. And even I sit in Erode, and Ramchandra students are in Chennai, and I do connect with them, and everybody is doing the project. So virtually, yes, it is possible. But the interest that you should have, there are a lot of tools available online, and if you think that, okay, I will learn, and self-learning is always the best thing. So if all these tools are available, you just download it, start trying it, and if you have doubts, I think you can put it in the forum. You don't need expect somebody to sit, and there are a lot of forums available online where they can just go just key in your doubts or errors. There will be a lot of people immediately answering to your errors that you got it. So, and you can rectify, and you can just do things. So to answer the question, yes, it is possible. And if you have the interest to learn, okay, you don't need to really to be offline, and you can do everything online.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you very much, Doctor. Could I now address this next question? It's very specifically addressed to Mr. Madhu. This is a user by the name of Ramasamy Srinivasagan, who says, when it comes to machine learning ops in healthcare, whether computer/ECE/XYZ domain with ML or data science knowledge is preferred, or do you prefer ML with a medical engineering background from a placement point of view? So just putting it out there, do you prefer a computer with ML, or do you prefer a medical engineering with ML when it comes to placements? Which degree is better?
If I kind of thinking from students' point of view, if you take if I'm not, I don't know, maybe Mr. Raju or Dr. Senthil may have a better answer. if there is a specific course on with ML with medical engineering, and if I am a company who is specifically working on it, I would really love that course and try to pick from them. When from industry risk point of view, that is an exact match. I would love to take those students if they are really sharp. So that it's more benefit for me as industry. But from student point of view, I'm narrowing down my roles actually. So as a student, I would not take that. I mean, unless I have so much passion to it, I can take it. And then if that particular college has a proven record saying that, okay, there is so much of placement is happening, there are so many people coming in, it's good. But from a student point of view, I think we don't have to narrow it down. That is one point. And from the industry's point of view also, the ML is getting applied everywhere, not just medical. ML is getting applied to auto. ML is applying to XR/VR technologies. ML is applying to every other industry. It's like electricity. So what we need is the basic ML skills, and then having some good set of projects so that to prove that he is a good problem solver, and then good learner, he is upskilling himself. These are the qualities we look as a industrialist, I mean, from the industry. So, and you don't need to, I mean, then in case of this medical, these things, typically what the industry would do is they will hire few doctors actually. These companies will hire few doctors and they collaborate with them there to get a better solution for them. So that's kind of, there's no Boolean answer for this, but
yeah, but we're getting a very clear sense of what makes sense. Get your core vitals right. That's the takeaway. Be strong on your fundamentals. You don't need to be fancy. An added bonus is great, but make sure your fundamentals are solid. That's the message. Thank you very much, Mr.
To add to that,
yes, Professor.
We happen to offer a computer science and medical engineering. Although the medical part is there, the computer science is the core part of it. In fact, about 75% of the program is common to artificial intelligence and data analytics part of it. And then on the top of it, we provide specialized training for those who are interested in on the medical aspects of it. They actually go to the hospital and the doctors teach these things. So it's an added one, but it is an open one for anybody from other branches also to take if they want to. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a wonderful plan actually. So it kind of solves the other problem, like the foundation is kind of really strong, so he wouldn't be really tied up on with this A, and then he has this specialized medical skills. So that it is really wonderful combination. So
we have a very fundamental question that I think you'd be the best person to answer. This one is from G. Padmanabhan. Padmanabhan wants to know, if I choose ECE, will I get a job in AI, ML, IoT, or cyber security? This may seem very simple, but I think this is a question that a lot of students have. If I have to get jobs in these areas, can I do an ECE degree? Dr. Senthil?
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer this question. Most of them have this perception like ECE is a safe course. Okay, if computer field is going down, I think I can manage with this electronics and communication engineering. Most of them things like that, because I've met students and parents telling, sir, give us ECE. And I know that they can also attend the computing placements. So one thing that I want to tell us, yes, you can do, but you should choose an institution which has the flexibility for you to learn artificial intelligence or the provisions that they give in their electives or the open electives, whatever so it is. If you have that flexibility, I'm sure, yes, you can do it and you can masters yourself or do a minors or the honors in whatever the subjects that you like to do it. In cybersecurity, AI, yes, you can do it. But you should check the institution where you're joining. That institution should have the flexibility to do so, because otherwise they will have their own fixed curriculum, and you will not be able to register for those courses that you like to do or pursue. So if you have the institution which gives that flexibility, yes, you can go ahead. And most of them, again, another question always popping out is, sir, computer science is better or artificial intelligence is better? Sir, the basics in any course that you take, the first 2 years, we will be teaching the basics of computer science. Okay, the next 2 years, you will be learning about the courses in the specialized area. So you will not be missing anything. So whatever course that you choose, give your fullest. That is the only requirement needed. So if you decided, okay, I have taken ECE, but I will do all my elective courses or specialization in AI, yes, it is possible. And if you select an institution which gives the flexibility like Sri Ramachandra, yes, it is possible.
Professor Raju, another very basic question, and I hope that he'll indulge me with this. Professor Raju, you listed a whole list of courses that you have. You have a BTech in AI, you have a BTech with a specialization in ML, you have one which is leaning towards cryptocurrency and so on. Do you have separate professors for these courses, or do you have one big department where everybody is an expert on everything?
No. Actually, we have groups within the larger, group of faculty with the areas of specialization. It's the same thing in other institutions as well. Since we're dealing with a certain number of students, so we have to have at least 4 to 5 strong areas. For instance, someone who has strength in cybersecurity. Another one would have specializations and background in artificial intelligence and data analysis. There may be a third group dealing with medical engineering. So these are the things that we had to do to bring the faculty on board. And so we bring them together wherever is needed, but not everyone is an expert in all these areas.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Professor Raju.
Thank you.
This is a bit of a HR meets tech question. So I'm going to pose this to our talent acquisition expert, Mr. Kotur. This comes from Thiruvengadam Sadasivam. He says, initially, when a student is in the final or a third year, should he be preparing for just technical skills or data structure skills while looking for placements? Or is there anything else that you think they should focus on in that very crucial 6th, 7th, 8th semester, just when they're sort of jumping into the placement bandwagon and attending interview after interview? What is it that you as a talent specialist think a student should prepare and should have on point when they come for an interview at Wipro?
Sure. That's very important question. This is applicable to every student, any part of the world today. So most of the tendency with the students is they start preparing for the job interview when they are in the 7th and 8th semester. I really don't know why do not they start when they are in the first semester. Why not in the 6th standard? Why not in the 11th standard? No, interestingly, the companies, they ask questions in their campus written test. It all belong to the physics, mathematics, English. They studied in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th standard. Even the question that aspiring candidates in all India, Indian Administrative Services, you get the same questions. So first and foremost, aptitude you start developing as a habit, not just a preparation for the world, right? Second, I think you did mention about the communication. Communication is, in a 80-20 Pareto rule. 80% of your technical skills get a visibility with your 20% of behavioral skills, right? Most of these they miss. And interestingly, what the training and placement officers also do is they focus on more speaking. Now, communication is not just the speaking alone. Communication has 4 components: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. LSRW, we do it. If they practice themselves in communication, writing a simple, just in time, one topic is given by the recruiter, the person should be, impromptu start writing something meaningful, right? Otherwise, they make some English word. Today, what is happening, even in English essay test is done automated evaluation. Nobody is asking to read. So we give the window, they have to type. So the topic comes, you start typing it. Based on natural language processing and keyword semantic syntax, assessment also happens whether the aspiring candidate has the ability to understand the problem domain, comprehend better, and produce the required answer to the question. That's the level AI is coming into the recruitment engine as well. And the third important criteria is, most of the time these students, they do the projects. Sometimes I hear they borrow the project from somebody else, right? So for me, it is a very surprise they get a project done by somebody else and they do not know, but during the interview, when the recruiter or the technical panel asks question about what is your contribution, many times they don't know. So therefore, just to make sure that very three simple, you should have a strong foundation from the first semester. Don't prepare in the 11th hour. That will not help. So it is just like a bride preparing for the matrimonial ceremonies. It is not going to help, because understanding the bigger picture of the work world from the first semester, it's very important. So therefore, Dr. Raju and Dr. Senthil, they bring this industry institute together to ensure that their students get right exposure from the first semester. I think Dr. Raju mentioned about the internship kind of thing. When the student go to the industry, work for 3-4 weeks, they get to know what is happening around the world. It's a great initiative to have industry institute interfaces through internship program. The second is very important. When they write a resume, they should write about them, so that there is a first line that comes in every resume. They call it objectives. 89% of the resumes have the same English, starting with the initial quote, end quote. How can X have the same vision of that of Y? I asked the question. They smile nicely. Sir, I just borrowed this from my friend. Now, if you borrow this objective from your friend, you cannot borrow his job. So they smile it. So dear friend, very important. You don't worry about others. If you know only Java, and you know Java one topic at 10 out of 10, please write on the first line. Mr. Recruiter or Miss Recruiter, you test me in this topic in Java, 10 out of 10, I will answer. So nobody will really worry about it, right? And when you say that with a confidence and a conviction, you are actually done 80% of your entry into the corporate world. What they look at is how genuine you are, how confident you are, how communicative you are, how courageous you are to take the action. It is not about, you have done a degree, therefore you are getting a job. No, degree is only a passport, not the visa. So let me repeat, degree is only a passport, not the visa. So therefore, every engineering degree holder, irrespective of the branch you belong to, civil, mechanical, electrical, chemical, bioinformatics, ENC, computer, and variants of computer, you need to be like a liquid. Liquid fills every shape in 3D. So therefore, I think the question Dr. Senthil was answering and Madhu was adding, as an engineer, you have to have an engineering thinking, not just the engineering degree. Fourth, very important, I summarize with the 3 C's. You can add any number of C's. You want to be in the jobs of 2025. Let me repeat it. You want to be in the era where humongous opportunities are coming in 2025 and 2030 in a digital emerging technology. 3 C's are very important. The first C is coding. You know any programming language, you need to crack the code, right? Whether you know C, C++, Java, Python, C#, R, any programming language you feel, it is only a tool to write a code, but underlying concept is a problem solving. Second C is about communication. Communication is not just talking, not speaking. Communication is a whole lot of holistic approach to convey, convince, and communicate, right? That's where it's very, very important in a customer world. And third C is collaboration. Today we are entering the world. So the future of work, what I was telling about, all the title of today's panel discussion is all about the future, and that future is now, right? While you are at home, people who claim to be working from home in the same city, today's world is much different. You need not be in the same city, right? You can be in your hometown. You can be in your rustic world, but still continue to work. That's the world we are. But how you collaborate with different cultures, different time zones, different teams, and different customers. In today's workplace, it is not that you belong to a company X and working for the customer Y of that company X. No, I am a software engineer. I am an AI engineer. I am working for a company X, but I also on a deputation to the project where company A, B, C, and D are having a opportunity to work together. So therefore, I get not only working with my own colleague from my company, but also a colleague from my competition, right? In order to simply put it, if there is a project given to Wipro, Infosys, TCS, Cognizant, you are working with all the 4 or 5 people. So Madhu should not feel, why can't Qualcomm? Maybe a project from Qualcomm as well, right? So therefore, these 3 C's are very, very important for everybody, and have a mindset. The fundamental transformation for any engineer is a mindset, and underlying mindset is a learnability. If you have a learnability, you have RBI in your pocket. Let me repeat. If you have a power called learnability, you have RBI in your pocket.
And who does not want to have RBI in their pocket, honestly? Thank you very much, Mr. Kotur. I must just to give you guys a little bit of a this is not something that a lot of professors will tell you, but the truth of the matter is, in any viva that you ever attend academically, people don't want to hear numbers, they don't want to see statistics, they want to listen to you talk about your experience and what you've learned. They will ask, and I'm sure Dr. Senthil and Professor Raju, who have vast experience with these things, both in India and abroad, will tell you, no examiner or no panel will sit you down and say, recite what is on page 16 on the second side, the whole table. That's something that ended with the tables in class 2. People will sit you down and they will ask you intuitive questions just to understand what you've experienced and what you've understood. And if you can't tell them that in the simplest language, believe me, you can say it in Tamil, Malayalam, Hindi. Of course, language is a barrier in some places, but more and more today, if you can't communicate the simple things that you've learned and you're not strong on your basics, guys, you're not going to go anywhere. So those are the 2 real key takeaways here. Before we call this meeting to a very quick close, I'm going to take one last question, because this is a very intriguing question. And I'd like everybody to just very quickly chip in with an answer before we wrap this up. This one is from Abhiram Pradhan. And Abhiram says, I am a commerce background student. For me, which course would be best suited to make it in AI or data analytics? Now, you very often get guys who have been in second group, computer science, done MPC, and they've got all that. But commerce background students, what should they study to get a career in AI and data analytics? Let me start with Dr. Senthil, and then we'll quickly just take everybody's inputs.
It's a good question. First of all, I need to tell that AICTE, the governing body, what they said is the student can be from any background, and the institution, even he can take up an engineering course if he wants to, and the institution will give them the bridge course for the essential contents they want to learn before starting their engineering program. So for the person who asked this question, you have a bright opportunity now. If you want to join an engineering course also, you can do it. You don't need to worry about, I'm a third group student, whether I can learn engineering. Yes, you can. Now there are provisions to do so. So you can register for a AI course and you can go ahead. So there will be a bridge course for you where they will be teaching you the basics of computing and the necessary things that is needed that will be taught in the bridge course. So you don't need to worry about, sir, I'm a commerce student, whether there is a chances for me to learn things. Yes, it is possible. So don't worry about it. And you can do this.
Mr. Daniel, I think to add to what Professor Senthil has said, we offer a BSc program in computer science with artificial intelligence and data analytics. This is also a 4-year program with 1 year of internship. And it would allow someone with that background, and we have some students who have joined that. Of course, more importantly, what Professor Senthil said about AICTE, authorizing institutions to take students and provide them the background in mathematics and other subjects needed, even in an engineering program, that's possible. Thank you. And of course, Mr. Kotur would say that in the past, we have dealt with employees who went to work for Wipro without necessarily having such background have turned out to be exceptional employees for him. So he would say his experience on that too. Thank you.
Mr. Madhu, let me just quickly pull you in here. Commerce student doing what degree do you think they should do to really make it in the cyber savvy world of IoT, ML, data tech, and so on?
I think Dr. Senthil and Dr. Raju kind of explained it very exceptionally. I think all the courses which is available for the engineering students is now available for the commerce students as well. So I think they should be able to do that. And then let's say if not the full engineering course, if there is an opportunity to have some 1 or 2 years of AA course as a mini degree, if that is available, they can take that as well. And from the industry point of view, I think we kind of look for majorly the skills, what this person is capable of doing. I mean, there is always a weightage is there, but if you are really good at what you're doing it, I don't think your commerce degree or any of thing will even be discussed there. So it's not a problem at all. So your willingness and how much strongness is going to be a deciding factor. And on top of it, like Mr. Kotur kind of clearly pointed out on this gig economy. So just on the Kaggle, like it's like similar to a top quarter for the data science thing. Just go on Kaggle, and then if you come up in that even in that 10,000 ranking, then you can people will kind of search and kind of do headcount to get you into this organization. So you shouldn't be there is no limit, there is no obstacle for you to kind of learn more. And I'm really happy that the traditional learning like engineering degree is also available for the students with the commerce background. Then that is a fantastic opportunity. Just hang on to that.
Thank you. Mr. Kotur, with the last word, I'm going to combine it with the one small question that Leelavati has just asked this very second. She said, does being weak in mathematics affect my prospects at any of these degrees? I don't know about you guys because I'm sure you're all maths whizzes, but for the average person who has the average level of mathematics, Mr. Kotur, if you could tell us, then we'll wrap this up quickly.
Thank you so much. I think Leelavati, I will first answer. Leelavati is a great mathematics books, right?
Yes.
Now, Leelavati, you don't worry about it. If you don't know maths, don't worry about it. Every job in IT industry, every job in mechanical industry, every job in medical industry, not really built on maths. I think if I combine that BCom degree and yours, if you have a flair for numbers, if you start counting the numbers, if you're able to relate the numbers, if you're able to draw inference out of the numbers, I think you can fit into any job, right? Is a simple solution. Second is, if you have a flair for managing the diverse workforce, because both the way it is happening, artificial intelligence to machine learning, cyber security, cloud computing, 5G, which is going to dramatically change the market, then mobile technologies, 3D printing, right? Dr. Raju enlisted all the things, robotic process automation, AR, VR, all these things definitely change the way the workplace is and the way the customer looking at and the impact on the end users. It's going to be changing and it's already started. There is no second thought about it. But there are thousands of roles. I think Dr. Raju mentioned 97 million roles. All the 97 million roles by 2020 are not just built on mathematics background. But if you have a mathematical flair, and it will help you to move into multiple roles. If you're not, but you have a specific role. For example, you want to be, after your BSc or, BCom or BE, you want to do something. There are testing roles in the corporates. you can pick up that Selenium, learn and do that. Or you can do part of the IT infrastructure, roles where service desk kind of roles are there. There will be a window open, you can click. You don't want to do anything, then you have a business process outsourcing, voice-based or data-based. And every, even you don't need a degree. If you are 10+2 and you are speaking well and good, your job is done, right? So that's the first point. Second point, if you have a data flair and you have a love for the data, and this is a world we are in, artificial intelligence, data science, then machine learning and deep learning. Together, they rule the world today. Now, why I'm saying, the moment you keep your smartphone in your hand, right? Anything and everything you've done is actually determined by your AI algorithm or a machine learning that is running inside core of your smartphone. So every day, Daniel, I'll put 1 or 2 cases before we conclude, if it's okay with you.
Of course, please.
That is why it is not always, integration, differentiation, all that. Even all the best-in-class people who have done with, arithmetic, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, differential, the most of them ended with only Microsoft Excel, right? So Madhu possibly definitely appreciate that we are all become masters of the advanced Excel. But advanced Excel is the precursor to the modern data science and modern data scientist role. I'm sure that many corporate people are also there. I'm sure that I heard they are joining when I shared the link with them. They will appreciate this point. So what I was telling that is, your handheld devices have become so smart and you can learn together. So when the machine started learning, humans should not stop learning. That's the message I wanted to leave. Okay, that's the first point. Second, every day morning around 7:30, I put my WhatsApp status with one quote. People say that, your quotes are good. So one day, for chance, I did not, update before 7:30, right? My Siri thrown me a message. It's a time to post your quotable quotes, Kotur. I shared with some of my members how it is learning my behavior. Think of your managers in the workplace. Second instance, I would like to quote my Alexa. In 2019, I was supposed to go to flag hosting to my office. Previous night, I was talking to my wife. She told, hey, Prabhu. So she calls me, Prabhu, you have to get up in the morning. And morning, I came out of my room. Good morning, Prabhu. Today we have a flag hosting at your office. I surprised in corner. I thought my daughter is, or my wife is telling like that, but is Alexa was telling. So your privacy is digital, no longer yours. In this world, knowing right skill, right opportunity, with the right attitude, and for the right place, and right choice, will put you in right growth trajectory. That's I wanted to, irrespective of BE, BTech, BCom, BSc, even diploma, don't worry about. I see many MBBS MDs, they get into data scientist. I think those are the people are making huge bucks in Corona world. Just based on the cough pattern, they are determining whether you caught Corona plus or Corona minus. And based on the eyes of the infected people, they are able to see whether you are a Corona plus or not. BE, BTech, as compared to MBBS and MD doctors, are able to come up with these innovative methods because they are using these emerging technologies, including AI and ML. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Let me end this with what Einstein probably taught a lot of people. If you don't need to store it in your brain, don't bother. All you need to do is where to find it. And as long as you can get that through a great education, I'm sure you're all sorted. I hope many of you find great jobs in 2025 and beyond. Let me thank all of our panelists. Let me thank Mr. Kotur, Professor Senthil, Mr. Madhusudanan, and Professor Raju. Thank you so much. It's been extremely pleasurable listening to all of you. And I hope it's been very useful for the students that we've had with us today. I hope you guys find your way. And if you have any questions related to any of these topics, do reach out to our speakers. I'm sure they'll be happy to guide you because it's in it for the future. They're in it here for the future. So all the best, everybody. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I would like to thank all of our panel members for their time and sharing their wisdom. Thank you very much. Professor Senthil, Mr. Kotur, and Mr. Madhu, thank you.